What kind of freakazoid would let someone hunt him just to collect a $50,000? Next question. This is Slashers, a podcast about movies and more for those who love horror. My name is Jake, and with me, as always, is my esteemed colleague, co-host, and cohort, Brian. Brian, say hello to the mutant goons from beyond.
What's crack-a-lackin'?
Now, Brian, this is a movie that you picked, so I'm going to let you sell it to me objectively as a horror film.
A con man gets conned into a game of cat and mouse when he believes he is going on a hunting expedition, only to find out that he is the prey.
Ba-ba-bum. And so for those of you who didn't read the episode description, you're like, oh shit, this is the most dangerous game, but it's not. In true Slashers April Fool form, we're doing The Pest with John Leguizamo.
Leguizamo. Yeah, I'm going to fuck up his name probably a couple times this episode. So sorry about it, guys. If you're listening,
he's got better shit to do. Ain't nobody got time to listen to our bullshit. Actually, that's the thing, is everybody has so much time now. They're just like, well, fuck listening to a podcast about movies. I'm just going to watch the movie because I have so much free time in quarantine.
Yeah. I was explaining that to the old ball and chain the other day, and she wasn't really understanding what was going on. I was like, babe, nobody gives a shit. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, they want to listen? Nah, they'll just watch it. I mean, if everybody had a TV attached to their fucking dash of their car, it would be the end of podcasts.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Well, at least like movie review stuff, if it was like informative, but what the hell do I tell you about? I tell you about stuff I researched online. I mean, everything I find, you could probably find in a book.
So essentially, when all of the cars are automated, we're fucked.
Oh, so done. Of all of the adaptations of The Most Dangerous Game, we are doing The Pest because everybody needs a little levity in their life amidst the chaos. So as far as The Most Dangerous Game is concerned, it's a short story wherein a gentleman is brought to an island, and I think he's marooned.
Wow, you're calling him a gentleman? That's interesting coming from an animal lover, because the original story, he's a big game hunter. So I feel like he's anything but.
Oh, okay. Well, he's a butthead. And he's on an island, and then he ends up being hunted. Now, that has happened many times in celluloid form. Shall I regale you with all of the times that this story has been done?
Yeah.
So there was The Most Dangerous Game in 1932, A Game of Death in 45, The Dangerous Game in 53, Run for the Sun in 56, Bloodlust in 61, The Suckers in 72, The Woman Hunt in 72, Maneater, whoa, here she comes, which is about, in that adaptation, it's very interesting. Instead of a guy hunting them, a guy sicks his trained tigers on a couple, which is interesting. Turkey Shoot, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity, Deadly Prey, Lethal Woman, Deadly Game, Surviving the Game, Mine Hunters, Red, Werewolf Hunter, Hounds of Zaroff, and The Most Dangerous Game, which is starring Liam Hemsworth and Christoph Waltz, which I watched the trailer for and seems bland.
Wasn't there one that just came out called The Hunt?
Yeah, I don't know that it's exactly the same, but it's close enough to where I'll give it to you.
Yeah. And I want to say it came out sometime last year, but nobody really gave a shit about it. I think they actually canceled it or postponed it. Yeah, it was actually when there was an El Paso shooting.
Yep.
And they're like, maybe not.
Awkward.
Yeah, and there's actually real life shit that kind of happened similarly to what happens in this book, apparently. So let's see. Robert Hansen, a serial killer who was active in the early 1980s and would kidnap women and release them in Alaska's Nick River Valley. He would then hunt them armed with a knife and a Ruger Mini 14 rifle. A 2003 American crime drama film, The Frozen Ground, starring John Cusack and Nicolas Cage, go figure, Nick Cage.
Who's in everything,
is based on this case. Hansen was arrested and imprisoned for life, where he died of an undisclosed illness. I'd like to say that maybe a girl that he had tried to hunt somehow got into the prison as like a prison guard or something and like exacted her revenge.
Or like the ghosts of the women he hunted. Ooh, spooky.
Nice. And then also in Zodiac Killer, essentially the actual Zodiac killer, not just a stupid movie. There's a reference to The Most Dangerous Game in the letters that he wrote to the San Francisco Bay Area newspapers. He had included, I quote, "Man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill." And that's kind of creepy, right? Because he was literally hunting people. So,
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of surprised this doesn't get more play. And one thing that, I mean, I think we can both agree that The Purge is very much like heavily the same thing of like the rich people abusing the poor people and victimizing them. But I think it's just an expanded universe. We're like, oh, well, it's not just that you're hunting them, it's the fact that there's rape and there's murder and there's thievery.
The Purge is kind of perfect when you think about it. You have this like social elite, and then you have the poor, and that's essentially what the original movie or original book was about, right? It's this kind of a poor guy who gets shipwrecked on an island, and then you have this like wealthy, I want to say it's like a Russian aristocrat in the original. And I mean, obviously it's super easy to switch to a German, right? You're like, it's fine. But yeah,
It ain't
I
an
mean,
American accent, I'll tell you that.
it totally makes sense because you have the disparity between the two, and there's always going to be the fight for survival, and the fight for survival is going to be a lot harder on the weak and the people with less fortunate, right? It
Yeah.
just goes with the territory.
Well, it's an underdog story. Can you imagine a scenario? I mean, unless the person being hunted is like a child rapist or something like that, can you imagine any scenario where you like root for the person with the gun chasing the other person? In like the whole dangerous game scenario.
Yeah, it never happens.
Maybe the guy who ate
No.
the bat soup, but other than that, nothing.
Is that an actual thing? Is that I feel like honestly there's so many different rumors going on, but that one seems to stick, right? Everybody's like, "Oh no, it was clearly somebody that ate a bat." And you're like, "Well, I don't where did that even come
Well,
from?"
I'll tell you this: the situation sure is batshit crazy. Wah 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 wah. Brian, I noticed that
You
you took
really
some notes on the adaptations. You want to go through some of them? The only one that I really love is Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. Hour 20 minutes, which makes it the perfect time. And the titties. So many titties, many titties.
Yeah, so with the adaptations, the first one you have is The Most Dangerous Game that came out in 1932. That was the closest you have in comparison to the original story that came out, I want to say 1924, give or take.
I won't fact check you on it, so that's definitely right.
Yeah, actually it is 1924. Where the fuck did I come up with that?
It's 1924. Da, 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 da. Sorry, that was Oingo Boingo's 1984, as sung
Oh,
by me.
nice. There you go. Then you have A Game of Death, came out in 1945, and it changes Zaroff into Erich Krieger, a Nazi in the aftermath of World War II, which, I mean, again, going back to the old Nazi thing, it's not hard to do. Then you go to The Suckers in 1972. I gotta admit, when you think of the name The Suckers, I don't think of like anything that would remind me of The Most Dangerous Game. But it tells of a sexploitation version of the story with the hunter using models as his prey. Interesting.
I could dig that.
I might have to do a little homework later on and watch that one.
Brian,
Then
I'll
you
have you
have
know you're an independent contractor on the show and you're not an employee. So if you develop carpal tunnel syndrome from vigorously masturbating, I am not. It's not a compensable injury. I'm not paying you.
Got it. That's fine. I'm sure I'll be watching it and Michelle will come busting into the room. I'll be like, I'm just doing research. Leave me alone.
This is for my show no one listens to.
Then you have Hard Target. It came out in 1993. The ship's location in the 1990s New Orleans, with homeless Vietnam War veterans voluntarily serving in return for potential payment from a shady businessman as human prey. Ooh.
I think I've
It's
seen
always
that one.
a shady businessman, right?
Is that the
Somebody
one
in a
where
suit.
he blocks up the barrel of the gun with like a cigarette and it blows up in the guy's hand?
That's actually the one that I'm going to talk about at the very end of the movie or very end of the episode.
Ooh.
And that's called Surviving the Game. But we'll get into that one a little bit later.
Hey Brian, you know the funny thing about the game? You just lost it. Oh.
That's right. And then you have The Hunt that came out in 2020. 2019, 2020. And that follows 12 captured strangers who are hunted for sport by wealthy elites. Kind of sounds like it's a little bit like something else we're covering. And the film was originally going to be released on September 27th, 2019, but release was postponed in response to Dayton and El Paso mass shootings in early August 2019. It was released on March 13th, 2020, which was this week, last week.
2 weeks ago, something like that. Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then
God
this-
damn it. Dates are hard.
Well, the sad thing is, like, that movie's so fucking cursed because it actually did get pretty decent reviews, but it's like, all right, now it's people in quarantine protocols, so they're not fucking leaving their houses. So first it was moved from August because of the multiple shootings. Then it was moved to this, and nobody is there. Oh, it's
Man,
gotta
it kind of
hurt.
makes you wonder if like any of these movies that are like it's too late for them to kind of cancel or postpone, and it's like it's not early enough to where they can be like, well, we're gonna reshoot later. If they can't just go direct to DVD or direct to fucking stream, I guess it wouldn't be direct to DVD. Nobody fucking does that anymore. But like, you know what I mean, direct to stream or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk of a few movies that are in, the bigger ones at least being, delayed entirely. Shooting is like stopped on the Batman and stuff. One of the things that's really interesting is like the New Mutants, and I can talk about this because it's vaguely horror. Um, it's really sad because that movie has sat on the shelf for over a year since the Disney, buyout of 20th Century Fox, and the director finally gets a director's cut. That's going to be released. They don't care about the continuity with the MCU. They're just going to release this movie. And so now there's talks that they might just literally put it out on Disney Plus for free. It's like, dude, that's so just sad. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
people complain all the time about how nobody goes to the movies. And it's like, we don't have to go to the movies. It's a farce. Like, you have so many actors and stuff who want to get pompous to be like, well, there's no art movies in theaters. I don't need to fucking go to a theater to see a Marriage Story, right? That's not a
Yeah.
cinematic experience to me. A cinematic experience is something I can't have at home, right? So when I'm watching, Slave Babes from Beyond Infinity, I want giant titties, right? I want something I can't get at home.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if you think about it, who wants to pay $45, $50 for a bag of popcorn and a soda?
F
So-
that noise. I'll waddle my ass to my damn kitchen and I'll get something there.
That's it. You ready to get into some statistics?
100%.
Yeah, buddy. So with a budget of a cool 17 million, how much would you say that they grossed in the movie The Pest?
I'm going to go negative 14.5 million.
Well, actually, they topped that by 17.6 mil. So if you have negative and then you add the positive, so yeah, they only made 3.6 mil. It wasn't great. Wasn't great. But then again, I mean, so you look at the competition for this film was
Eesh.
not great. It was not great. And what I mean by not great, as in the competition was amazing, right? So it was smashed together with Empire Strikes Back, February 21st. You have
The
Vegas
special
Vacation.
edition for those of you who are like, oh my God, this movie's, I'm watching the wrong The Pest. No, you're right.
That's true. That's true. I'm sorry. I forgot to include it. Was the special edition that came out, but it was still like a box office smash.
Oh, for sure. That
right?
was like
Because-
my first time being able to see that movie in theaters.
Yeah, exactly. You have Vegas Vacation came out on February 14th. You have Donnie Brasco that came out on February 28th. The same day, you had Dante's Peak, The Beautician and the Beast, which I got nothing there, and Suburbia, which again, I'm like, I don't really know what that is, but
Google Suburbia movie. Oh my God. This is the most. Oh, this is a 1983 one. There's one where it's a drama / punk rock movie. Let's put in 1997 then. Suburbia. Oh, this looks bad. Oh my God, it looks so bad. You need to Google it. This is what the 90s look like. Oh God, I'm so glad that decade died. It's actually based on a book written by Eric Bogosian, which the only reason I mention that is because Bogosian is fun to say. Try it, Brian. Bogosian.
Bogosian. Just looking at the cover of the movie, it looks like it would be like a CD cover for like a ska band
Aqua,
or something,
right?
Yeah. So I mean, maybe same day competition wasn't terrible. Dante's Peak is what I feel like I would choose to go see.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right. What do you think about the runtime?
On the film, what is it, 85 minutes, 84 minutes? I think it's a little bit, it feels a little stretched, if I'm honest.
It's definitely under the special 90-minute beautiful mark. But yeah, I kind of agree with you on that, which is kind of saying a lot, right? Because you're like, oh, dude, it's under an hour and a half. It's a comedy, and you don't really have to pay too much attention. But I agree with you. I think the second half of the film, it just kind of drags on, right?
Yeah, and the fact that
And
they go back to the fucking shower sequence to pad it for length is like, what the fuck hacky shit is that?
yeah, yeah. I feel like anything after the hunt itself and maybe him escaping is just like excess filler that you don't need.
Oh, 100%. You don't need it to wind down. End on a high note. You don't need any kind of resolution at all. The fact is, like, the whole, like, oh, I conned him because I'm a con man. I was like, that's anticlimactic.
Directed by Paul Miller.
Paul Miller actually plays the father of the kid going through the bat mitzvah. So he has a cameo. It's pretty cool.
Oh shit, I didn't even notice that. He apparently directed basically all of the Saturday Night Lives, which is kind of cool. I mean, a good majority of them. I shouldn't say all of them because there's a fuck ton of them. He is currently responsible for producing and directing all of Comedy Central's stand-up comedy productions. He won 2 Primetime Emmys and has directed countless stand-up comedian specials such as Lewis Black, Kathy Griffin, and any of your standard Comedy Central presents.
Which is awesome. I mean, those things pre Netflix, that was the best way to get your shit out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it was written by David Bar Katz.
He wrote the screenplay in 3 damn days.
I believe it. It doesn't seem like he took much thought into this.
No, I think it's a lot of on-screen improvisation, and the fact that it took 3 days is probably why they had to pad for time both at the beginning and the end.
Right. I mean, and it doesn't hurt that one of the other writers of the film is the star of the film. So you just kind of bounce ideas back and forth and be like, oh yeah, and then this would be really great to add in. And they just literally write everything down and be like, yep, okay, we have a movie.
Well, remember what happened when we had the comedian kind of cutting in and doing the rewrites on So I Married an Axe Murderer? You're like, ooh.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder if, like, behind the scenes, how much of this David Bar Katz really hated, right?
Ooh,
He's
I
like,
could see that.
oh yeah, this is great, and then he like goes back to his wife and he's like, I fucking hate this shit.
I hate John Leguizamo. I'm going to hunt him down on an island.
It was produced by Robert A. Papaya?
Papazian.
Papazian. Robert A. Papazian is a producer and production manager known for Nash Bridges, Rome, and Inherit the Wind.
That's pretty great. It was also produced by Sid Sheinberg. Oh, you know, the guy who was the president of MCA and Universal Studios, the guy who discovered Steven Spielberg, the guy who's responsible for Jaws and Schindler's List and Jurassic Park and E.T. Yeah, this movie's on his record too.
It almost seems like it makes no sense whatsoever.
Back to the butt fucking future, and then there's this movie. How the fuck are you gonna say that to me with a straight face?
Yeah, man. I mean, you got to start somewhere, right?
And you got to end somewhere. But then he continued to, he only died in 2019. So he was the head of Universal for over 40 feckin' years. So yeah, you can't win them all, I guess what you can say.
There you go.
Think about it this way. If you're already in your fucking 60s, 70s when you're producing this movie, I don't even know what the fuck kids are doing when it comes to like TikTok and Fortnite and stuff. And I'm sure those references are already dated. And I'm in my 30s. So imagine being twice that plus and be like, I don't know. None of it makes sense to me. So let's just try it and see what happens, right?
You kids seem like you know what you're doing. Fuck it. Let's roll with it.
Exactly. We didn't make films like this back in my day, but then again, they were all talkies in black and white.
Racist.
Whoa.
So then you have music by Ram Malco. He was a music producer, and you might recognize him in the work that he's been in. And he was in Weeds. He was in 40-Year-Old Virgin. He was one of his friends. I want to say this is where God, what's his name? Michael Scott. It's not Michael Scott.
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell. I'm like, it's always Michael Scott. He's like talking to him and he's trying to describe what feeling breasts are like? And he's like, it's like a bag of sand. He's like, you're a virgin. He also he also is the guy that basically says, don't put a pussy on a pedestal. They have like this huge.
Oh, that's what your tramp stamp tattoo is for. I never knew what the quote was attributed to.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Brian, let me ask you a quick question. If I had planned to make a reference using this guy's name, and I wonder if you would get it. So, if you will engage me, when you said that I would recognize Ron Malco, I was going to be like, because Amadeus, Amadeus, Amadeus. You know what? I'm looking at you and you're staring blankly at me. Do you know the name of the
So
artist?
it's like Rock Me Amadeus. Rock Me Amadeus.
Yeah, do you know who sang it?
No.
Falco. Like Malco.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For some reason, I was like, Adam Ant.
Every time I hear Adam Ant, I'm always like, I love to envision a bunch of like little versions of him, like hugging Wolverine's bones and be like, it's okay, we're saved.
Somebody else that did a lot of music was Richard Rudolph, and he did Final Fantasy, My Spy, Us, Megamind, and 7 Pounds. So the guy's done quite a bit of work.
Oh no!
And then,
if you've never seen Megamind, you're doing yourself a disservice. It is fucking delightful.
It's really, really good. And if you thought to yourself, I wonder what Jonah Hill would look like as a cartoon character.
Dude, it's creepy, right? When it's that head on like the flexy body, I'm like, this is making me feel all sorts of weird stuff in my naughty bits.
That's good. And then I also just wanted to make note of the beginning song of Voodoo Mambo, right? Because it gets stuck in my head.
A little bit of Monica.
It's definitely not that one.
Okay, sorry. That's Voodoo Mambo number 5.
It's used in the shower scene, the beginning and the end of the film. It was written by Richard Rudolph, Ron Malco, and John Leguizamo.
Doesn't he talk about like a booger sticking to your finger and stuff at one point?
Dude, I looked up the lyrics and I was almost going to add a little bit of the lyrics to this, but they're so batshit crazy that I'm just like, you know what? I'm good. Are you going to try and sing them now?
I'm not going to sing them, but I might do them in the voice of Michael Myers from So I Married an Actor. Oh my God. This is, I like to party with my peep, cruise and creep, play 3-card Monty on these crazy streets, straight hustler, I'm gonna scam in a minute, so low to the floor, pick the pocket on a midget, slick shyster, pet meister, living life in Miami's Vice, Maya C, nobody's messing with the frog, see, where you Messiah now? Na 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 na. Nice lady, I'm hurting. I'm sexy, but I'm hurting. All right already. I'm ridiculous. Like a booger, I stick to this. Take a whiff of this. 1 stinky dinky ha ha ha. 2 stinky dinky ha ha ha. Old school beat meets Latin freak, and you can't stop. Old school beat meets, oh my God, there's a whole fucking other page. Are you kidding me?
I'm telling you, it's super long, man. And
I thought that I was done.
I feel like he put a lot of thought into this, and honestly, it's a little poetic.
I'm a Latin Houdini. Disappear in a flash with your cash, and I'm back like a genie. Oh.
Yeah.
Get stupid, get retarded, cause Pest will get this party started. I feel like the Black Eyed Peas ripped this guy off.
Yeah, no shit, right? The amount of props that are used, like in just this little intro, like music video almost, is kind of fun, right? So he has like the Cleopatra headdress, I guess. He has the big cigar. He has the gold tooth. He has the Dracula outfit. I mean,
oh yeah,
fuck. It's like
that's
all
the
kinds
budget of the
shit.
film right there.
Right. You want to get into nicknames?
Nicknames.
Dick names. So John Leguizamo, Pestario Pest Vargas. Have anything for him?
Clown. Because he's a clown in this movie, but he's also the violator, the vindicator, the penetrator.
Yeah, I like it.
Have I ever told you, anytime I think of the word dead, I think of clown? When he goes, D-E-D, dead.
Nice.
Spawn was in my formative years, man. You got to remember that.
I was going to say, I got to watch that movie again. It's so great. And it did so poorly, which is really sad.
A lot of people really hate on that movie. I'm like, compared to what? Like, honestly, you want to tell me that Spawn is worse than the first Superman, where he reverses time by spinning the Earth backwards? You want to insult my intelligence and say that? The fuck
Were
out of
they
here.
once upon a time going to remake Spawn?
Yeah, with Jamie Foxx, and Todd McFarlane was actually set to direct it, and then it's been postponed and blah blah blah. And the last fucking thing I want to see in the world is Todd McFarlane direct anything. But Todd McFarlane is a very interesting fella, or McFarlane. Uh, I actually recently was listening to an interview with him where he was like, would have been a baseball player, and then got injured and was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna become like the entrepreneur of all things, and basically reinvent collectorship.
Huh. That's interesting. I don't know if I really like Jamie Foxx as Spawn. I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm leaning towards that Ezra dude. I like him a lot. The guy that's supposed to play 007.
Idris Elba?
Is it Idris? Idris?
I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sit farm you. Is it? Are you
No,
talking
you're.
about
Yeah, I thought his name was like Ezra or something, but apparently it's not.
Ezra
It's
Miller's
Idris?
the Flash? He's a white kid though.
Oh, oh, is it Idris?
Yeah, he tested positive for the.
Idris Elba. Yes, that's the dude. I feel like he would be a better Spawn than Jamie Foxx, but I feel like Jamie Foxx isn't tall enough.
Yeah, but every time I doubt Jamie Foxx, he does something cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what
I
was that
didn't-
movie? Was The Law Abiding Citizen, where Gerard Butler blows up a lady's head with her phone? You remember that movie?
Yeah, that's a great
fucking
movie.
ruled in that
I like
movie.
that movie.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you like that movie a lot with Jamie Foxx because he's the lawyer and he ends up like beating everybody. You're like, yeah, that's
Take that,
me.
sucker.
Wait, he's a lawyer in that, right? I think he is.
Did you have a nickname for him?
I was just gonna go with Pest, so that's really, really bad. So let's go with Clown. I like that. A little tidbits on John Leguizamo. So he was in Moulin Rouge, Spawn, Romeo and Juliet, John Wick, Ice Age, Super Mario Brothers. He was accepted into Lee Strasberg's actor's studio and studied with the master for one whole day before he died.
Ooh.
John quoted in saying, "I have that effect on people." Yikes. For his role in Ice Age in 2002, he tried a variety of different speaking voices for his character Sid. After watching several hours of Discovery Channel footage of sloths, could you imagine getting paid to do this? Like,
For research? And it's a tax
yeah,
write-off?
just-
Fuck yeah.
watch some sloths for a little bit. He developed the lisp because sloths store food in their cheeks.
That's pretty clever, actually. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. Mentioned on the Bob and Tom show that he turned down the role of Tom Hanks' boyfriend in Philadelphia to do Super Mario Brothers.
Dude,
Ugh.
it's super fucking progressive, though. Think this dude did 2 Wong Foo, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Like, that was the 90s. That is not... No, woo. People were still
Yeah, but I mean,
homophobic.
as far as Philadelphia, didn't Philadelphia win some awards?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you look at one compared to the other and you're like, oh, I really love the fact that he did Super Mario Brothers, but
As somebody whose gay family member died of AIDS, I feel like that movie's exploitative. Just like Dallas Buyers Club. Like, you pull at heartstrings, whatever, but basically you're capitalizing. If you were making that as like a PSA, for sure. If you're making that as a means of like financing research, something, for sure. But you're just doing it, and I have no interest in it. But that's just me. I'm obviously not the norm with my background. So
yeah. Next, we have Jeffrey Jones as Gustave Shank.
Jeff Jones.
I like to call him. Honestly, I just want to call him pedo, but
Creep, dude, right? Not cool.
But that has nothing to. That's not referencing anything within his work of film, so that wouldn't exactly be fair.
No, I think it's fair. I think when you do what he's done, you're just done.
Which I'm actually going to get into in a little bit. So his known work is Amadeus. I feel like we were just singing about that.
Amadeus.
He was in Howard the Duck, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Sleepy Hollow, Devil's Advocate, and Beetlejuice. To name a few. And now to get into the gross details. In November 2002, after having been accused of hiring a 14-year-old boy to pose for sexually explicit photographs, Jones was charged with one felony count of employing a minor for purposes of taking sexually explicit photos and a misdemeanor count of possessing child pornography, and released on $20,000 bail. which I feel like is a low amount for what's going on here. But then again, I don't know, maybe it's 2002 money, whatever. In July 2003, after pleading no contest to the felony charge, he was placed on a sex offender register, given 5 years probation, and ordered to undergo counseling. The misdemeanor charge of possession or control of child pornography was dropped, but it's on the internet, so nobody forgets.
He was actually in the Deadwood movie in 2019, 7 Days, 10.0 Earthquakes. I mean, these aren't great films, but he's still making a living. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like any of these movies have like kid actors as like side stand-ins or whatnot, as a parent, I'm just like, nah, we'll pass. It just seems really creepy.
Yeah, I can't, I try to be like a positive person and think about like, oh yeah, people like being resuscitated, recuperating, fixing the problems, making good on what they do. But there are certain things I just like, I have a mental block. I cannot be nice about. And it's like, that's it. Goodbye. You are dead.
Right. I mean, especially somebody that has young children. So
Yeah,
it's
for sure. If Homeboy wanted to take pictures of my kids, he would not get probation. He would get decapitated.
Exactly. So let's move on to some little more chipper characters here. We have Freddy Rodriguez as Ninja. You might recognize him as the guy that was in Planet Terror,
Right on.
right? You remember that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That was a great one. Although, you know what? I feel like it doesn't get as much coverage as Death Proof just because of Kurt Russell. But
Yeah, dude. I'll say that. And also in Planet Terror, we're really talking about Leg Lady more than anybody else, right?
that's true. That's true. What's her name? She was in the Fast and Furious stuff. No, it wasn't Fast
Rose
and Furious
McGowan?
girl, was it?
It's Rose.
Is it really? Why did I think it was the chick from Fast and Furious? But I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's Rose McGowan. Okay. I was worried.
I take it back. It's Rose McGowan. And next you have Aries Spears.
Who was like he was Mr. Mad TV forever, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, every single skit essentially had him in it. And what was his name? Will Sasso.
Yep. And was it Michael McDonald, the guy who did Stewart? No.
Yeah. I mean, those are like the three like godfathers of that show. And then maybe the girl that says he looking like a man.
Oh, yeah, Alex Berenstein. She's on the fucking Marvelous Miss Maisel and Family Guy. Like that lady's career blew up.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, Mad TV was like, I feel like ahead of its time, honestly.
In some ways.
Obviously, you can say like, well, SNL and everything else.
There's a certain degree of like meme culture that came out of Mad TV though. Like I feel that when it comes to Saturday Night Live, it's a lot more sketches and it's trying to take itself as like legitimate comedy, whereas Mad TV was like exploitatively bad because even if the jokes failed, you were laughing at it. It's this weird kind
Right.
of meta humor where it was like making fun of its presentation in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you can honestly probably compare this and SNL or Mad TV and SNL to like the Seinfeld and Frasier, right?
Ooh, I could see that for sure.
You have like the people that the Mad TV and the Seinfeld, and they're just like almost seems like it's the age group, right? Where it's like, okay, you're like the late teens to like mid 20s, and then anything after that is SNL.
Another comparison I would do would be Married with Children or Unhappily Ever After, the Nikki Cox show, where it was basically the same kind of dystopian family or whatever, but the dad had a talking bunny for a best friend. You remember that at all?
No, I never saw that.
Yeah, it went on for 5 seasons. Like it's crazy. Like nobody fucking
Huh.
remembers that show at all. But it's actually Bobcat Goldthwait played the little bunny named Mr. Floppy. But yeah, it's like a version where it's like it's not a beloved show, but it's a show, and there were redeeming
Yeah.
qualities to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like Mad TV in a lot of ways is kind of similar to like all that, right? As
Yes.
well. So then you have like this younger generation watching all that, and then it goes to Mad TV, then it goes to Seinfeld, and maybe Friends, I guess. But I mean, it's all kind of around the same type of like humor, right?
Yeah, I think there's a certain degree of timelessness that goes with a lot of Saturday Night Live sketches, whereas like all that and Mad TV are very like, oh, this was the 90s. Like this is so clearly It dates in a weird way, but then now we're over 20 years from the 90s where you're like, oh shit, this is a quaintness to it that I appreciate.
Right. Next, you have Tom McCleister. McCleister, yeah, which is kind of an interesting name. It kind of makes it sound like he maybe no, that doesn't make sense. I was to say he's Scottish, but no, Tom McCleister is Leo, who plays the Austrian. I'm like, oh yeah, he's the Scottish dude. No, he's actually supposed to be the Austrian death machine. No, that's the Adelaide Dying side band, but uh,
Living tissue on the metal endoskeleton.
exactly. So Tom McCleister, he played Leo. I don't have anything for him. I mean, it seemed like he had a scar on the side of his face. I was going to call him Scarface, but
Done deal.
I mean,
I have literally nothing better for it.
yeah, he was in Twins, which is super funny, right? I was looking at his work. I'm like, I don't remember him in Twins, but apparently he is in Twins.
Arnold Schwarzenegger made more money off that movie than all of his other movies.
No way. Is that
Yep.
true?
Because they couldn't pay him up front, so he took a percentage of the film, and so that film was hugely popular when it came to like basic cable and renting and stuff. So he made so much money off the back end that he has multiple times said that's the most financially successful film he's ever done.
That's so awesome. That's so cool.
And he was already like a millionaire by the time he started like being in films in the United States. A lot of people don't know that. That dude's like super legit. He might have slung his dick into his housekeeper, but damn, he's a legit dude.
You have Joe Morton as Mr. Kent. You might recognize him as the scientist that created all of the evil things in Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Oh, yeah. I remember him.
Yeah, he was like the shivering guy
I
that
don't know
gets shot.
how much longer I can hold this. That's me when if I drink
exactly.
coffee in the morning and I have to take a shit. That's me talking to my sphincter, and then everything blows up. It's the same exact thing every day.
The guy's been in a lot of shit. He was in Terminator 2. He was in Speed. He was the captain, if you recall, in Speed. He was in Godzilla in the 2019 film.
Oh, you mean the movie where Godzilla's in it for all of 4 seconds? Yeah, I remember that movie.
Yeah. That's the one where they're exploiting the fuck out of all of you Godzilla fans.
Did not do well. Wait, is it 2019?
I think it was
2019 would have been King of Monsters.
Unless it's 2018. Could be wrong.
Yeah, Godzilla King of Monsters.
Oh, okay. Right. Then you have Eduardo Ballerini, the ballerina.
That's perfect to me.
No, I mean his name in the movie is Himmel Shank. He was the son. I mean, I have nothing, so I guess ballerina works.
I was gonna call him Try Curious because he'll try anything once. If you know what I'm saying.
What if we just call him Cocteau?
Good.
All right. He was in The Sopranos also, and he was also in Boardwalk Empire.
Hell yeah.
We ready to get into the recapitation?
Let's do it.
All right. So for the recapitation, you have fast-talking Latino con artist Pestario Pest Vargas, and he is the target of Scottish mobsters, and he owes them a shit ton of money. I think it's like 50 grand. And he's willing to do basically anything to make up for that. And he gets the con artist gets conned into being hunted for 24 hours. And, well, I don't know if you would really call it con, right? Because he finds out that he's getting hunted and he's like, oh, yeah, no, I'm totally cool with that, right?
Very odd. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, if it's life or death, but he's like bound by a contract. So he's like, I guess I just have no choice. It's like, you have all sorts of choices. Like, that's not a legally enforceable contract, my little friend.
Well, ready to get into play-by-play?
Let's do it. It starts off with the weirdest opening of a movie I've seen in a long time, with John Leguizamo singing to himself in the shower. I mean, he is so hyperactive in this. It blows my goddamn mind.
Yeah, honestly, it's ADD. It's ADHD. If you could imagine what a kid that has ADHD and just like snorted some pixie dust, this is probably it.
100%. Like this movie, I don't know. This movie, if you distilled it into just this, like if there's, people talk about like the pull quotes, right? Like when we did In the Mouth of Madness, everybody's like, oh, everybody does the quote, do you read Sutter Kane? Like if I was to distill this movie into one image, it's him in the shower going buck wild on himself in the like the fucking Iliad and the Odyssey length rap.
It's completely bizarre. And, it progresses from him going and taking a shower to saying hi to his family and how his family just absolutely just hates him, or at least his dad does. And he's just like, "Oh, what's up, my failure of a son?" He's like, "Hey, what's up, pops? How's it going?" And then the mom's like, "Oh my god, I love you so much." They do a little dance routine, and then he bounces, right? And he's heading off to work. He sees these kids, and it's reminiscent of Billy Madison to me,
I could see
right?
that for
Where
sure.
like they play the dodgeball and he just like beans the fuck out of people. So like these kids are
Owns up.
talking shit and he's like, "All right, well, put your money where your mouth is, or your sack lunches," basically. And he fucking schools them, right? There's this little fat kid, I guess, and they're all making fun of him. He's like, "All right, me and this kid against you guys." And the kid's up next to the basket. He lifts him up and slam dunk. And then that's that, He gets their lunches and he's on his way, right? He gets picked up by his homies and then they go to like some Latin festival, I guess.
This
Right?
part reminded me of Meals on Wheels with Jackie Chan, if you've ever seen it.
I have not.
It's not his
And why
finest
does
hour,
it
but it's fine.
why does it remind you of that?
Just the feel, the like kind of outdoor festival kind of thing going on.
No. I feel like anytime I think of like a festival in Miami, I always think of like, is it called Carnival? Is that an actual thing?
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like colors, like vibrant colors everywhere. Everybody's in like speedos and like women are in their what fucking bikinis. God damn it. Words are hard.
Yeah. I always think of, have you ever seen, no, there's an outdoor, god damn it. Why does Jean-Claude Van Damme have to be a very popular dancer? Because I Googled it because he's in Breakin' in 1984. When I Googled it, because I wanted to be sure. I thought it was Breakin', but I was making sure it wasn't anything else. And then it was like his famous kickboxer dance. And I was like, God damn it. I know it's not that. But there's a scene in Breakin' where he's in the background. He's in this like spandex thing and he's like dancing. And I think of that every time I think of like outdoor. I think of that with like Venice Beach and Muscle Beach and, you know,
Doesn't he do dance moves in like a lot of his films? Like I feel like he does a dance move in like Bloodsport as well, where he's like dancing around and stuff. I could be wrong, but I feel like I should know because I've seen Bloodsport entirely way too many times. Put up your dukes.
well, he does
Frank
it in
Duke.
Kickboxer. I don't remember him doing it in Bloodsport, but I could be
Maybe
wrong.
I'm thinking of Kickboxer then.
It's definitely
Yeah, I mean
possible.
it's like a well-known gif, right?
Yeah, that would be the Kickboxer one for sure.
Okay, yeah. So when it comes to the festival, you have the Pest, and his latest con is where he tries to act like he's blind. And do you think it's hilarious how he's just like, "Oh, I'm blind. I'm just gonna roll my eyes into the back of my head, and I'm blind." Like, I mean, you know what? They are in Florida. Sorry for all of our Florida fans.
Hey, after what I saw in the Tiger King, Florida, Oklahoma, it's all toxic wasteland to me. They all are crazy. But yeah, this movie is like it's racist, it's sexist, it's ableist. It's amazing to me that there isn't
Yeah.
like a rallying cry from people who are as liberal as I am to be like, you need to take this movie off of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, because it's the devil.
Yeah, but I mean, for $3 to rent it, it's fucking super easy. I'm like, "Oh, let me think about it." Click.
Take my
So
money.
right. So he's playing his little game, right, with the coconuts, and he obviously knows what he's doing. He can see. He's not blind. And shocker, you have your first intro to Gustave, and he's looking around with his binoculars trying to find the right specimen. And he comes across that like super athletic guy that's getting played by the Pest at the time. He's like, "Ooh, I think I found him."
Yeah.
And then he gives it to Leo, and he's like, "Leo, I want that guy." And then of course Leo's like, "The Pest? That you want that guy? Oh, okay,
Okay.
sure, why not?"
Whatever
Um,
Lola wants, Lola gets.
right. So then you get your first introduction to the Scotsman, the Scottish mob, which is funny because it's not the Irish mob, it's
Yeah.
the Scottish mob, right? And
Ugh.
apparently the Irish mob was too expensive for the film. So they show up and they're like, "Okay, well, so Angus needs his money, he needs his 50 grand. What's going on?" And the Pest plays it off like, "Oh, I'm still blind, blah blah blah." And then he pants them both. And one of the guys, I'm not exactly sure
Frilly lace
what he
underpants.
it's something. It's definitely something.
So weird.
You see a lot of flub. I'm just saying right now. There's a lot of something going on there. He gets away and then he puts on his costume which is like super racist.
Dude. It's
Super
literally the
racist.
craziest thing I've ever heard. And then he cons his boss by like, he's like, okay, well,
Cracky.
my pet duck, and then the guy like feels bad for him, and then he eats his own duck allegedly, and then he has to go to deliver food in a fucking go-kart. Like, what is
Dude,
this movie?
that go-kart was fucking amazing though. Every time I saw it, like as a kid, I'm just like, why can't I have a go-kart like that?
Why
It
don't my
would be
parents love me
amazing.
that much?
It would be amazing. So he delivers the food, and it's, go figure, it's to Gustave. He finally gets there and he meets him. Gustave tells him all about how his family has like a scholarship fund, and they want to offer it to young, unfortunate ethnic kids, within the neighborhood or something like that. Because it's essentially is like him being the super racist freaking German who's like, oh, you know, filthy people who aren't my freaking where I'm from, basically. And so he's like, you can take it if you want, or I can offer it to somebody else. And he's like, oh yeah, dude, where do I sign? He's like, yeah, just sign on the dotted line. You just got to go through some tests. And I thought this part was really fun, right? Because it reminded me of like Rocket Man,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Could you mention? Yeah, okay. So like, especially when he like blows the ping pong,
Yeah.
he just like falls over. Yeah, it's really great. So you have him spinning around on this thing, which doesn't equate to anything that he would be doing on the island.
Literally no G-forces at all.
So, he ends up signing, and he's like, okay, Gustav's like, okay, well, let's go on this like fun little hunt on my private island, and we'll make a toast of it. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, why not? So you have the Pest and Gustav and everybody flying over to his island. As soon as he gets there, you come across Himmel, right? And what a
It's
weird dude, right? What a weird dude. And I mean, he totally plays it off, right? And he goes into this little rant about how he gets locked into his room like weeks at a time with a snake. And you find out this snake's name is Cocteau. And it is, quote, from the Pest, he says, oh, from the French playwright? And he said, no, from my two favorite body parts.
Oh, that's so gross.
So it's so funny, and it's so like corny and like a little kid. It's almost like a fart joke, right? And you're just like, I see what he did there.
I love it.
So, I
It's
don't
so
know.
gnarly.
Yeah, yeah. He tells him that, my dad's really here just to kill you. So I'm just giving you a heads up. And the Pest is like, well, whatever. I think you're a little weird. Get away from me. He falls through a trap door, ends up going into the like trophy room where he sees like all of these heads everywhere, and they're all in like excruciating, like almost like death stills of like what they would look like when they get
It's
decapitated.
so dark too, man. Like it's so racist and awful, but then like he's not much. I mean, sure, he's not a murderer, but he's fucking racist too. It's just like this is such a weird like time capsule movie. Like imagine them trying to put this movie out today. Like it would blow
No
my
fucking
mind.
way. No fucking way. So, they end up going out to the courtyard, and they explain the rules of what's happening. He has 24 hours to survive, and then he'll get 50 grand. And he's like, well, what the fuck? I don't get a gun. This is stupid. And they're like, no, you get a gun. Here it is. And it's like the tiniest little pea shooter like ever. I mean, it probably still do some damage, but you got to be like 2 feet away from the guy to make sure you even hit him. So he runs off, immediately falls down a hill. What does he land next to? A fucking snake. And then you have this whole little like almost Ace Ventura little.
Exactly right. Like it's trying to be. I mentioned it to you earlier.
Exactly.
Like this movie is like watching. Like he was like, "Oh, this is like Ace. Like I want to be Ace Ventura, but everything is ramped up." You know what I mean? Like Jim
Yeah.
Carrey was already like the like extreme, and then like was almost like, "No, no, 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 no. You're not extreme enough. I'll show you."
It's the one upper, right?
Yeah, there's a whole other fucking gear above Jim Carrey, and it's John Leguizamo in this movie.
So then you find out that apparently the Pest has some kind of survival skills, right? Because he sets up the typical trap that you see in like all of these like movies that are in the woods. And somehow he came across rope and axes to cut down a giant log
Right.
and a net and everything else. And I mean, obviously, none of this makes any sense, and it's all fun and games, but they end up falling into the trap. The son gets knocked into the water, and then the net slings him up in the air. And it's funny because his dad's like, "Dude, stop being a sissy," and he's like,
But I
"I
am a
haven't.
sissy.
I am a sissy, father." I thought that was pretty funny.
So eventually, Leguizamo, the clown pest, ends up getting on a boat with Sissy Boy's son, and they go to the mainland. And what's interesting is that this is the biggest payoff of the whole movie. And I was like, wow, wait, was this movie actually clever? Because there's this like awful scene where they're just throwing up and throwing up and throwing up on each other and over the side. And it comes into play in a huge way later because you find out that the drink that he was given to toast this whole event was poison. And as a backup, it
Right.
was supposed to kill him if the dad couldn't do it, but he puked it all out, so he lived. And it's like, oh, what? It wasn't just gross. Like there was a purpose to this. It's so
Right.
weird.
It's not just crude humor. There's actually a thought process behind it. And if you looked at it closely, it almost looked like there was like rice
Yeah,
like spewed all over his face, and you're like,
it's from when he ate Quacky, dude.
okay, yeah,
Continuity.
yeah, yeah, that's actually true. So
So we've
it's a
established that like
possibility.
he has this girlfriend and she has a really annoying friend, but they have this little interaction where basically the girlfriend's like, "Hey, I want you to meet my parents." So even though he's in the middle of the game, he decides he's going to go and meet with her parents, and then he's hunted to there based on his
And
ball
then
sweat, if I'm not mistaken.
right, and then racism ensues,
Oh,
right?
so much.
He shows up to the house. He's wearing his like full ensemble. He's got like an afro,
I'm so
and
relieved he didn't do blackface though. Like I
oh
legitimately
my
suspected that
god.
he would.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, I mean, it's all fair game. And it's crazy, right? He like goes up to the mom, smacks her on the ass, goes up to the dad, and he's like, "Kill Whitey, free Angela Davis and everything else." And the dad's like, "Who's Angela Davis?" Thought that was pretty good.
Awesome.
So they were tracking him the entire time because apparently Leo put a tracker in his underwear. And so his underwear apparently is malfunctioning. His tracker is malfunctioning. His underwear catches fire. He goes rushing upstairs, and then this is where Gustave appears. And Gustave has this massive freaking dart gun. Looks like it came from, I don't know, space or some shit. It's crazy, right? So he ends up shooting. He fucking takes out like the entire family, right? Which looks bad, like optics wise. You're like this big white German dude taking out a whole
People of color
not
being victimized by a rich white man. No.
not good, not good. Then you have Ninja jump out of nowhere. He gets killed. He doesn't get killed. He gets shot with a dart.
And you're like,
They book it.
no ninja, no ninja, no.
Right, right. I think it's crazy how they book it to a synagogue. They're like, "Hey, where should we go? Where's the last place
Right?
that crazy German's
Where's
gonna
the
live?"
last people who we should be racist against in Hollywood? Hey.
Yeah, exactly. So they do their little spiel in at the synagogue, and this is where who was doing a cameo? One of the guys, right, that directed the film.
Yeah. The director or it's the director because the writer of the film does the cameo before they go into the club where he's like,
Oh,
it's
and
not evil, it's not mad, it's angry or some weird shit.
oh, is that one of the guys?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Dude, that's such a random part, right? Where they're like trying to get into the nightclub and the guy's like, "Oh, it's not mad. It's I don't know." He says something
Don't
fucking
get
stupid.
mad, get glad. Remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But you know what? I remember when I was a kid, I thought this is the coolest thing ever, and I wanted my car to turn into a giant boombox. It
For
made
sure.
no sense whatsoever, and it
Dude, this
was
is what happens if
fucking.
Soundwave turns into a fucking car. It's awesome.
Oh, that's totally true. I didn't even think about that. So they have this little like beat off, right? No, that sounds really wrong. They, they have a base off. You could call it a base off.
A base off, face off.
It's like a face off, but it's a base off. And the white guys are like, "Oh, put in the cassette." And it's like, what is it? "I love rock and roll." And you're like, "Oh God, you just
Yeah.
fucking killed it." Yeah. So they go into the nightclub and he immediately sees all these Scotsmen looking for him, and he's like, "Oh fuck, I gotta find a disguise." And go figure, you have the Asian man going into the bathroom, and you're like, "Yep, he's gonna do it again.
Yep.
He's going back to what worked beforehand." So he comes out, and he's got the glasses on, the haircut, and everything. He goes and does, what does he do? He does
Karaoke.
karaoke because Asians love karaoke, right? That's a thing. I feel like everybody loves karaoke, though. I mean, don't get me
It's
wrong.
like
Give
a
me a few beers
cultural
and
thing there, though. Let me tell you, I've had
that's true.
to wine and
Yeah.
dine enough clients. It's oh man. I remember once where it was like
Is
3 attorneys and 1 client, and we're in this like bar in K Town, and we're all singing, and she like refuses to sing because she just wants to watch us. I'm like, what is happening? This is weird. Oh, it's so awful.
I think it's pretty good though. The song that he does is like the Bonanza song. I don't know. I thought it was pretty good.
Bonanza. Yeah. Another thing where I'm like, what the fuck is happening with this movie?
Yeah, exactly.
So he uses his pheromones to squirt on the guy. So everybody wants to fuck him, including his own son, who's like, Father, I feel funny. He flees. And the guy's like, oh, you're going to meet me at the dock because I'm going to kill your family. But why is he going to waste his time killing his family if he knows the poison's going to work? But whatever. There's a showdown at the docks.
The showdown at the docks, man. And I don't know what it was, but I feel like I saw something like this in like Lethal Weapon.
Oh, I
Once
can see that visually.
Is there like something that has to do with like boats where they're like fighting somebody and they're like hiding or going up and down stairs in boats and shit? I don't know. I feel like it was something to do with Lethal Weapon, but I could be wrong. Anyways, he plays his fun games where he leaves his little handheld walkie-talkie and he's misdirecting where he's at, and it's a bit played out, right?
is.
You're just like, okay, we need to end this. This has gone on way too far. Eventually, Gustave turns to how I feel within the movie, and he's like, you know what, enough games. I'm just gonna kill your girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly, right? I play for
So
keeps, motherfucker.
Right, exactly. So he goes and he has his gun aimed at the girl, and then you have the old switcheroo, right? Where you think it's the Pest in this bomb suit, and he's like, oh, cool, there you are, Pest. And then lo and behold, it's Chubbs. And Pest is up on top, and he starts shooting. Everybody drops their guns, and you find out that the Pest has been poisoned the entire time. And he's like doing a little dance, and I feel like he does the same dance like over and over again, and you can totally tell where they cut the movie and then they like have him do the same move but backwards.
Yes.
Right? And you're like, okay, like it's so bad. Anyways, he falls over, and Gustav and Leo are like, well, I mean, he's dead, so I guess that takes the fun out of it, and they leave. Come to find out, you go and you see Gustav going to the bank. He goes to collect his money before he goes back to motherland, and he sees a note in his like bank box, and that's all there is. There's no
Answer
money,
the
and
phone.
it says answer the phone, and you're like, oh, that's so fucking stupid. And what happens next? The phone rings. So he answers it, and it's the Pest. He's alive. He explains the whole thing, right? Which honestly, if he didn't explain that, okay, I threw up the poison,
Yeah,
I would
never
have no idea.
Exactly.
I'm like, thank God you actually explained this, because nope, nothing. He ends up reporting Gustav to the authorities. Just then everybody breaks in, he gets arrested. He goes outside, and you see the Pest, and apparently he has a fun little twirly mustache and a monocle, and that makes him like the prime minister of like Germany or something. And they have this like little like back and forth between each other, like, you're not the prime minister. He's like, if I'm the prime minister, wouldn't I be able to do this? And he like grabs him in the ass and does a bunch of other things. It's just little
So
random things
weird.
at the very end that you're just like, okay, whatever. Ninja gets thrown out the limo. You're like, oh shit, Ninja was a guy in this movie. I completely forgot about
right?
him.
He's still alive after he gets ditched. It's so weird.
Right?
Oh, there's that weird pettiness where Spears is like, oh, you said that he was your best friend. He's like, I also left him to fucking die, you idiot.
Right? And then the movie ends.
And that is the movie. Isn't that crazy?
That is the end. Well, technically not the end, because the end is the beginning. That just went weird, right? Because the end is basically the baths or the shower scene.
Yep.
Again.
I feel like it's Groundhog Day. It's the same thing.
I'm like, wait, did this movie just restart over and over again? Like it's I don't know. Fucking crazy.
You're gonna pair this with drum
Oh yeah.
roll.
Yeah. So with this movie and the movies that we're doing this month, we're actually just kind of keeping it similar to what we were doing before with it, which is like a horror slash action. I guess you would kind of lean towards like an action kind of movie with this and what I'm pairing it with, and I'm pairing it with Surviving the Game. If you don't recall, it came out in 1994 and it had Ice-T and Gary Busey.
So good.
Okay, just those two guys alone, you have to check it out. So it's essentially it's a homeless man who is Ice-T is hired as a survival guide for a group of wealthy businessmen on a hunting trip in the mountains, unaware that they are killers who hunt humans for sport and that he is their new prey. It's super cheesy.
It is.
I mean, I think I saw it probably around the same time I watched this, which is weird. It's been about 20, 25 years since I've seen this
All I
movie.
remember is like the whole like check the barrel of the gun, make sure that it's clear, and I was like, that's not
Yeah.
how that works, but okay.
I distinctly remember like Ice-T, he has his like sweet ass dreads he had in this film. It's like super long dreads. He reminded me of like Predator. Thought that was kind of neat. And then I remember there were like heads in jars in like the cabin. And I was like, whoa, that's fucking crazy. But anyways, yeah. So I think you guys should check out Surviving the Game if you hadn't. And also maybe check out the Pest as well.
I think yeah, they're both worth watching. So we were talking about this. This is definitely like a tragic for me. I know we're not doing that. The King Fool for me is going to stay Biodome. The reason being, this is a movie that you can watch once a decade because you can enjoy how terrible and how calamitous it is. But I am so overwhelmed right now, even removed a couple of days from watching it. Like I need to detox because it's just
Yeah.
too much rattling around in my brain versus Biodome. There's a certain artfulness to its simplicity.
That's actually really true. Like I was saying earlier to you, maybe off episode, when it comes to this movie compared to Biodome, is I like the source material of this a lot. I mean, I grew up reading the short story. I want to say in middle school. I want to say it was I think the first time I read the short story, and I thought it was really really cool. And to see it kind of translate over into this, I didn't obviously as a kid, I didn't put two and two together. I just thought this was a fucking hilarious movie and I thought it was great. But looking at it after the fact, I'm like, that's kind of neat how they were able to construe one to the other. Whereas you look at Biodome, the story itself is great. Like the actual structure of everything and what's included and with that, I think I also agree with you in that Biodome is just a little bit better to me. I think that's it for tonight, right?
So keep in mind, everyone, that if you want weekly bonus content, you have to be a Patreon patron. It has to be a $5 or more. Right now, during the coronavirus outbreak and everything, if you send me an impassioned plea and say, Jake, please come on, I have nothing else to live for, I'll happily send it to you. But you have to very specifically reach out to me and seek my pity and make me feel great for helping you out and sending